Listen, knobhead. If I want to have a swim in my own bin on the hottest day that we've ever had in England, then I'm entitled to do so. You to stop me. You've got nothing to say now, have you?
Yeah. If Clint wants to take a dip in his trash can, Clint can take a dip in his trash can.
This is America.
Welcome back. Beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com as we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developments that are happening right now. As of course, we are promised a fair political prosecution as there is now jury selection in the Donald Trump case. Ben Shapiro is really not happy about some people not being able to have children, as now Biden is saying a bunch of crazy stuff, including how cannibals have ate his uncle. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're going to be discussing that plus a lot more all for the next 2 hours. So make sure to share this broadcast with your friends and family members, as it is more imperative than ever, as YouTube has been very censorious as of late. As recently, just moments ago, they took down a major episode that I was a part of on Timcast IRL 3 years ago with Joe Rogan, Michael Malice, Blair White, AJ, and a lot of other incredible individuals. That video gone from YouTube, one of the most popular Timcasts out there. Just vanished, just deleted retroactively 3+ years ago, highlighting how whenever there's an election year, there's a lot of censorious activities. And to fight against that, you sharing really does mean a lot to us, as of course there's also a lot of lawsuits going around, and your support, you voting with your dollar and supporting independent media, really means a lot to us, as of course you guys get to also participate in the conversation. And one quick and easy way to do that is to, of course, just sign up to lukeunfiltered.com. We have many different tiers that you could get involved in. All tiers get the ability to call into the show, as you get access to a special Telegram channel that allows you to call in and ask whatever unfiltered questions you want to ask. You get to show us whatever you want. Last night's caller was awesome, and we're going to be taking calls in about an hour and a half from now. Another way to participate is to also go to mysuperchat.com, where your super chats actually show up on screen. If you super chat enough, there will be some specific action showing up on screen, and it's only a 3% service charge on mysuperchat.com. YouTube super chats, 30% service charge. MySuperChat.com, just 3%. That's a big difference, and it really does mean a lot to us. As, of course, joining us for this conversation is someone really pretty awesome and incredible, and that, of course, is Anthony Sabatini. Anthony, for the people who don't know you, who are you, and how would you introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm Anthony Sabatini. Technically, my title is I'm the chairman of the Lake County Republican Party, but most people know me for being a multi-term member of the Florida State Legislature, where I was very loud and aggressive on a lot of our MAGA populist issues. And now I'm running for U.S. Congress for District 11, which is everything west of Orlando in Central Florida.
Absolutely. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, especially all the inside baseball stuff, since politically there's so many strange things happening that you have a particular insight on that we're going to be absolutely talking about. Clint is also here after his bath. That was pretty refreshing. That looked pretty nice.
Yeah, man. You know, this is America, and if I can't take a bath in my trash can, then this isn't America anymore. Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, co-host of The Best Political Show. You should pick up your effing phone right now, go to your favorite podcatcher, and search for both Liberty Lockdown and The Best Political Show so that you never miss an episode. I also co-host Tower Gang, which you should never, ever watch, and I'm also running for the Vice President of the United States and the Libertarian Party. Can you effing believe it? I am out of my mind. We got Steph on the buttons.
Yeah, button pusher. Steph, button pusher. Steph, we are change. Ready to go.
Alrighty then. Let's just get right into it, as there's a big battle unfolding right now on the House floor in Washington, D.C., as Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has recently proclaimed himself a, quote, wartime speaker. I think he meant to say sellout speaker for the military-industrial complex. But this is what he just had to say a few moments ago, as there's a very interesting battle happening right now for your tax dollars.
Look, we are in unprecedented times, okay? We're in dangerous times, as has been articulated here, around the world, and here at home. We need steady leadership. We need steady hands at the wheel. Look, I regard myself as a wartime speaker. I mean, in a literal sense, we are. I knew that when I took the gavel. I didn't anticipate that this would be an easy path. Former Speaker Newt Gingrich posted a couple days ago on his social media that this is the hardest challenge that's faced a speaker probably in the history of the country, in the moment that we're in right now. He said arguably maybe comparable to the Civil War, but maybe worse.
Yeah, a very interesting statement there from Mike Johnson. That Thomas,
Literal?
yeah.
Literal wartime.
I
Did
mean-
I miss it?
No.
Okay.
No, you didn't. No, you
Just
didn't.
making sure. I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interject. I'm just like, was there a congressional declaration of war? No?
Against the American people, undeclared,
okay.
otherwise against the middle class, the blue collar people of this country that have to pay for all these foreign wars that aren't really winnable and are meant to be prolonged. I would say, yeah, that actually
Is he
a clear
talking
war
about?
here.
Do you have any insight as to what war he's talking about?
Well, I think obviously that was like a sort of canned speech. He obviously had written that a few minutes before, really wanted to present himself as a tough figure in American history. And obviously he's going to go down as one of the most failed and miserable speaker. I don't think he'll be a speaker in a couple weeks, but no, just a completely silly, ridiculous, inane thing. What's annoying most about it, though, is it's technically true. We are, there's a war going on in this country. They're trying to destroy the middle class, trying to destroy the sovereignty of our nation. But those are not, of course, the issues he's interested in whatsoever. He's interested in just pumping as much foreign aid as he possibly can. And, hopefully lying to enough people enough to save himself by letting them know that, the election's this close away. It would be too much turmoil to get rid of me, and so therefore just focus on the presidential election. Let me to continue to sell out the American people. Then next year we can have a conversation. And this has, of course, been their strategy for many years in the establishment is we're always so close to the next election, so don't do anything too difficult.
It'll make us look bad if we oust you. We have to pass $100 billion to a bunch
Correct.
of foreign nations and proxy wars that we shouldn't be involved in. Obviously, that's the logical, rational thing to do as we approach $35 trillion in national debt and $1 trillion plus in annual expenditures just on the interest alone. Yeah, we shouldn't risk looking like fools. It's so insulting. It's really unbelievable to me. Like I don't. And we were actually talking about this before the show, and I don't know if you're able to speak on it publicly. You're a flamethrower, so I think you'll be honest even on the show. Why do you think? I mean, this guy used to be pretty in alignment with the Freedom Caucus, the non-scumbag political elite. What the hell happened?
Well, he was never a great congressman, but you're absolutely right. He was better than the average.
Right.
And when we got rid of McCarthy, we isn't the people, but really the few representatives we have who reflect our interests within the Republican Party, I didn't think we were going to get somebody great, but we were going to get somebody better, marginally better,
Right.
a little bit better on a few issues. And, of course, some of the first things out of his mouth when he became Speaker, Mike Johnson, were better. He was saying things like, we're going to tie aid to cuts to the IRS, et cetera. He abandoned those promptly. Why did it happen so quickly? Honestly, I don't know. I think there's probably some truth to what Tucker said about him being blackmailed or just the pressure from the swamp being far higher on him than imaginable. That some kind of material or financial harm would be incurred on him if he did not do exactly what he's doing now. Secondly, I think his strategy failed. I think his strategy was, I'm going to kick all these issues out, get close to the presidential election. Our base and electorate will get blinded by the presidential election, sort of ignore the misdeeds of the House, and that'll get me through the election. Well, the problem is our people are honestly, a lot of it's because of the independent media, but we're far more focused on the misdeeds of these elected officials early on, and so he can't shake it.
Right.
And you got people in there like Gates and Massey and stuff that are like putting a light on it from within, and so therefore he can't shake it off, and so his strategy failed. That's why he did what he did. Otherwise, he would have probably thrown a few more bones out to the conservative base to try to gain in popularity going into the election.
Yeah.
But
And Tucker Carlson did have a lot of influence here. When he was still
Yes.
on national television, there was this kind of feeling, this sense that the Speaker of the House was afraid of him. Because every time Tucker Carlson made some kind of larger declaration, called out a larger kind of misdoing of Congress, you saw the Speaker of the House kind of recoil and kind of change his actions. And I think that could have been one reason, out of many reasons, why they got rid of Tucker Carlson from the most prominent news position in all of America, and now made him a part of the independent media that still has a larger sphere of influence. Some would say a little bit less than when he was on national television. But Congressman Thomas Macy responded to all of this, specifically to the video of Mike Johnson, by saying, "Get a grip. You can't use that as an excuse to justify $100 billion in foreign aid," as there's some really interesting moves being made right now by the speaker that allegedly is also proposing $300 million to the Ukrainian border. And there really isn't anything discussed about the American border, as the Daily Mail also kind of asked the question that we were just talking about, quote, why is Mike Johnson risking his job by pushing to send $95 billion to Ukraine and Israel? As it's pretty fair to say, I kind of agree with you, Anthony. I think they're going to oust him. I think they're going to kick him out because he's doing everything in his power to pass this bill, which a lot of people in America are saying, hey, there's a lot of other things we should deal with first before giving a blank check to Ukraine and Israel and essentially prolonging, financing, and expanding global conflicts that really don't have a larger geopolitical American interest at heart. That's my perspective. I don't know if you would agree or disagree.
No, I think that's right. And the other thing about this guy is, he's a, politico, natured person. He always wants to be in politics. I think he's calculating this as if I get ousted, that's fine. I can still be a lobbyist. I can still play some role in the conservative movement. But if I do what the base wants, and there's government shutdown, et cetera, the actual sort of gatekeep, like the actual establishment, lobbyists, and the people with the real money in the party are going to hurt him or block him from having success as a lobbyist or some other kind of role in the future. And so he's probably making a decision there. He's got no money. I mean, I think he's worth like $20,000. That's his net worth. So he's probably looking at this at a career level. I mean, that's the same with McCarthy. McCarthy knew he was going to get ousted towards the end, but he didn't care. He's just going to go, be a lobbyist.
Doesn't he get a $180,000 pension for the rest of his life, though?
They do get a full pension. I don't know if it's the exact salary. I think it is high. I think it's 6 figures, but it's not it's not the full salary.
Not the full, but it's probably livable is my point. It's like, why, I know this is kind of a naive question, but why put yourself in the position of being speaker if you don't have the courage to do the right thing for this country? Like, if you're just in it for the money, why not just keep your head down? And
I think he's just legitimately a coward on that specific question. When you why is he doing these things? I think he's incapable of making the hard decision to do the right thing because he is a cowardly person. I just think it. I mean, I don't want to get like physiognomical here, but like you look at the guy, he just looks like a weeping, goofy coward. He doesn't look like a man's man. He doesn't look like a tough guy.
Yeah, you could throw him in the locker room. You could lock it up, and he would be naturally at home.
It's probably
I'm
being a little too crass here, but when I look at the guy, I just think he's just a wimp. He's kind of an infant. Doesn't look like a serious person who could lead right the conservative people of this nation in the fight against the horrible special interests that are trying to destroy it. I think he's capable of it.
Yeah, the amount of pressure that this man probably is facing is probably severe. It's
very.
probably something that's very weighing. That's very difficult to deal with, and you could kind of see it on his facial expressions. I'm kind of playing the video of him describing himself as a wartime speaker, understanding that he's going against the will of the American people. All the polls highlight, hey, we don't want to continue this conflict. Hey, we don't want to pay more for this war that's unwinnable. We don't want to prolong it. We're giving the Biden administration extensively everything that they ever wanted, and we're helping them out politically in such a major way by propping up this conflict and not ending it. If we end this conflict, the Democrats are going to have egg on their face. They're going to look horrible, which they rightfully should, as of course so many Ukrainian men have lost their lives. A lot of people are asking the question, why? Why is this happening here? And the Speaker of the House has to go along with this, saying, no, we got to fight for freedom and democracy in Ukraine. We're not doing that.
No, definitely not. And my perception is that over the past, for years now, ever since Trump came into the American political scene, but really like harshly over the past few months, it seems as if the old guard kind of neoconservative mentality about still being kind of the global hegemon and the actual America first politicians are in a bit of a civil war. At least that's how I'm seeing it. I'm curious if I'm misreading it.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, there's always been a civil war in the Republican Party.
Right.
And, there's been times where we've won. I mean, you go back to Robert Taft, Goldwater, Reagan, Pat Buchanan, Trump, all the way. There's a never-ending civil war within the Republican Party, which determines the future of the country. I would argue right now we're kind of losing because you just have so many people that have co-opted the America First MAGA conservative mantle with the policies that are actually the opposite. So we just got to get better at spotting them. And I think our people are. I think people are finally seeing through it. And one of the white pills I would say the last couple of weeks or months is that a lot of like the boomer cons are looking at Mike Johnson and saying he's got to go. I thought they actually would have given him a free pass and came out against Marjorie, came out against Massey on this. But I'm hearing a lot of people, like older voters, saying, no, he sold us out. Because the border, I mean...
If you can raise the mic a little bit higher.
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, the Gallup polls show that the border now is far more of a significant issue for voters than it was in 2016 or 2020 or any other time.
Yeah.
It's now that if you do... When Gallup does polling and it doesn't list a set of issues, just what's the number one issue, it's far higher with independents than it's ever been. I think it's double digits higher. So there's just no tolerance for people who aren't willing to take action on the border. If you're not willing to use the power of the purse to reform border security, you got to go.
Well, and in this very aid bill, there is hundreds of millions of dollars that are dedicated to literal border patrol for Ukraine.
Yep.
Like unbelievable. And I just feel like
Border Patrol keeping people in so they don't escape and they get drafted into the military
That's exactly
and then
what it
put
is.
on the front lines and told to fight for those tracksuit wearing bureaucrats.
That's exactly what it is.
But it's just amazing to me that like the goal to do that and then to describe yourself as a wartime president as if like our national security is the border of Ukraine or Israel for that matter. And I just feel that like there's a huge groundswell of people in America that understand like our time as being the policeman of the world is no longer financially feasible. I'm not sure that it's even militarily feasible. You may disagree on that part, but it does seem as if like that is the divide here. And well, you said we may be losing right now. From my vantage point, as you know, just one of the commentators on this, it seems as if the people actually agree with us more than they do the political establishment. So that gives me optimism.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
But they've used sort of conic media to confuse the people. Like you talk about the $300 million that was in there. That's a major subpart of the bill that's going to shape public opinion. But Fox News would have never highlighted that, right? Like most of the conservative influencers would have never highlighted that.
Yeah.
But the independent media snatched it, grabbed it, used it. Now it's going to shape everyone's opinion of Johnson for the next couple weeks. Historically, that would have never happened because it would have never gotten to play in the media.
Right.
Yeah, the Republicans have the Supreme Court and they have Congress, but Congress just seems to be essentially rolling over and saying, yeah, Democrats, you could have whatever you want. We'll just give it to you on a silver platter. Every single different speaker of the House that is there just seems to be kind of acquiescing to the whims of the Biden administration under the leadership of the President of the United States that came out today and said that his uncle was eaten by cannibals. Yes, this is an actual statement, according to military records, that actually didn't happen. Here's Joe Biden, the President of the United States, making this very odd statement just a couple hours ago.
Ambrose Finnegan, when they called him Uncle Bozy, he was shot down. He was in the Army Air Corps before there was an Air Force. He flew single-engine planes, reconnaissance flights over New Guinea. He had volunteered because someone couldn't make it. He got shot down in an area where there were a lot of cannibals in New Guinea at the time. They never recovered his body, but the government went back when I went down there and they checked and found some parts of the plane and the like. And what I was thinking about when I was standing there was when Trump refused to go up to the memorial for veterans in Paris, and he said they're a bunch of suckers and losers.
Someone please give that man a nap. Holy frickin' cow. I mean, it just keeps getting more and more surprising the longer we go on. The closer we get to this election, it's pretty clear the guy's not there. He's not mentally cognitive enough to be the president of the United States. Clearly, there is a larger kind of organization behind him that's pulling a lot of the other strings out there. But this just shows you the kind of ridiculousness as there's people at his campaign speeches after he mumbles, after he stumbles, after he literally can't pronounce proper words and can't fully say sentences. They just clap for him regardless of whatever sounds come out of his mouth. I mean, this is
has
ridiculous.
no clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what happens in the fable. And it's obvious that he has no clothes and no brain. But I mean, honestly, though, who hasn't had an uncle that was eaten by cannibals during World War II or Vietnam?
Who among us?
Yeah, who among us? Cast the first stone if you haven't. Yeah, I mean, he's a pathological liar. It's the thing that makes it challenging is that I genuinely believe that he's senile or worse. So it's harder. It gets harder and harder to hold him to account for these lies because I'm like, now I think maybe he believes these things, and before I just thought he was a liar.
Yeah, this is obviously one of those recurring situations in American history. So with FDR, they hid all of his health for many years. Took years for people to see the severity of it. Doctors and everybody came public later. Same with JFK. You know, everybody knew that JFK's situation was really bad. Nobody knew the severity of it. Came out later. Reagan to a small extent, and then of course with this, whoever the doctor is that's pumping up with all the drugs every single time he gives a speech, like when he goes to the State of the Union, God knows how many level of medical intervention that they do. But that guy will have $1 million book deal, and there'll be all types of stories about it. And we all know it, but nobody really wants to talk about it. No one's willing to come out yet.
Yeah, I think they will eventually
with facts.
But no, it's true though. Like you could just tell when he does his standard press conference, and he's just like blah, 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 just like dragging hard. And he does the State of the Union, and he's just like, rah.
Yeah.
Like,
You see
this
it.
dude is on
You can
drugs.
literally see the difference,
Yeah.
and it's
He's
this
on
is when
drugs.
he's on. You know, he's probably on some minor drugs at that point.
Right.
But when they stage him, he's like
They quadruple the dose just
That's
for
what it is.
anytime he's got a big speech.
If it's actually even him, as there's a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories about Biden being potentially replaced or having a body double. At this point, I'm willing to believe anything because it's just so ridiculous that we have been propped up to a point where this man is still being put to the forefront, still being said he's going to lead us, he's going to help us, he's going to be there for the people to stand up against Donald Trump, which is crazy.
It's ridiculous. But mind you, too, the same aid bill that Mike Johnson is trying to push through, Biden came out a couple hours ago and he says I'm in full support of it. So it's like I don't know how Johnson is going to spin that as we're the opposition party, we're running contra Biden's demands, and yet simultaneously Biden's saying I'm all in, thumbs up, this aid bill looks awesome. It just seems like a total political non-starter for Johnson. And yet he's still proceeding with it, which is why I side with the Tucker Carlsons of the world, and that like this dude has to be getting threatened, or he's being offered a deal he can't refuse. And I don't mean that in the threatening way, just in like a financial back end. I don't know. It's just heartbreaking.
And
Honestly.
Chuck Schumer was caught today. I think it was a hot mic type moment where he was bragging, saying, "Wow, can't believe we got this deal. This is awesome." And
geez.
so that's really bad news. But the sort of like elephant in the room with all these major legislative initiatives that we get so frustrated by is the government shutdown, right? Because they all revolve around a government shutdown. Because we know, I mean, you guys say it got to be honest, in good faith. If they do what we want, if Mike Johnson does what he wants, there's going to be a limited government shutdown.
Yep, sounds great.
And for some reason, they have the most irrational fear about government shutdowns. They truly believe it's going to destroy everything, like cripple the world economy. You can't have a government shutdown. Of course, we've experienced them in our lifetimes 5 or 6 times, significant times. And it happened in the 90s, happened under Reagan too. We just have to like explain to people that a government shutdown is not the end of the world. And if there is a government shutdown, that's the only point of leverage you're going to have on the left. I mean, you have to embrace it. But none of these guys are willing to embrace it. They would rather be ousted as the speaker, the second most powerful person in the country, than suffer a government shutdown. It's weird. It makes you think why they're even there. I think the real reason they're there, though, is because their relationships with the donor class and the lobbyists and the revolving door. Because who suffers the most during government shutdown? The people who engage in the appropriations process,
Right.
who get some kind of material benefit out of the federal
Because
government
their
spending.
payday actually gets paused. But
Correct.
I actually go a different angle on this. I think the reason that they fear government shutdown is not because they fear everything will fall apart, but rather because they fear that everything will not, and the American people will go like, oh,
We don't need government.
Exactly.
Oh, we could fix our own problems. Oh, we could organize and have communities and a way to kind of work together rather than just being extorted by a middleman that doesn't really do a good job for us.
bingo.
Exactly.
So I'm all in for a government shutdown.
I
That
want an
sounds
extended
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's the only way you're going to get anywhere with the when you have a divided house like this.
Yeah. Gotta hold them hostage.
You're speaking my love language here. A government shutdown. I mean, man.
Well, it's funny you say that because that's almost where we were with, I think it was 1 or 2 shutdowns ago. It was the last one under Trump, I believe. And it was like 20 days. It was like Christmas time, New Year's Eve. And when they got to like day 18 or 19, people were like, wow, this is actually not so bad. And I really don't mind this. And we're also saving money. And so once that happened, that's when it all ended. But that was that point where it was changing the public opinion about it.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think about both the Ukraine and Israel war or Palestine war, however you frame it. Do you think that Is it strict? Because some people assess it and they go, "This is just pure military industrial complex."
I mean, we have stories about that lined up,
Okay,
and
we'll do it
it's
later.
probably going to be better
Sure.
to
For
have
Rumble.
that kind of discussion
Yeah.
on Rumble, as we have someone who commented, "Did you guys check out the new James O'Keefe expose on OMG?" Yes, we actually have it pulled up here. That goes along with what we were just talking about, as James O'Keefe said, breaking. O'Keefe Media uncovers who is really running the White House, as he just released a new video. We're going to play a small clip of it right now and then react to it as we do.
And so, what's your title? Like,
Special advisor. I work for the chief of staff, like directly.
oh, you report to the chief of staff. So, author's the chief of staff to Guzman.
Yeah, Isabella Guzman.
So she's basically a spokesperson for Biden.
Yeah.
She's indirectly campaigning for Biden.
Yes. Yeah.
Administrator Guzman said, basically, are going to these critical battleground states
Yeah.
to basically campaign for President
Yeah.
Biden.
Anytime we go, we try to visit with a member of Congress if they're a Democrat. The
Okay.
White House was like, yes, go. Don't invite the other senator because he's a Republican.
not.
And
Yeah.
don't invite the two members of Congress because they're Republicans. There's a guy named Jeff Sykes. I mean, by getting Jeff's sign off, you're getting the president to sign off. People call him like the second most powerful person in Washington. Most of the time it's like, hey, whatever this guy says is what the president says.
Who would you say is the most powerful person at the White House?
Jeff,
Jeff is the most powerful person at the White House.
other than like the president and all. There's probably like 5 or 6 people that work for Joe Biden and have worked for him for
Forever.
30 years. One of them is Ron Clay. Ron worked for Biden when he was like a senator. There's a guy named Steve Ricchetti. He's like a senior advisor at the White House. Anita Dunn. Yeah, she's a senior advisor at the White House. Gene Sperling. He's an economics guy. Oh, his sister, Biden's sister, she like runs the Biden Foundation. They're the people that run his different
Would you?
departments. If they put it on his desk saying like, hey, we think you should do this, to prophesize.
So I feel like Barack Obama's still very like involved.
No, he is.
Yeah, Hillary was being interviewed, and she said, "I still talk to the White House every day."
She has people that are like super close to her that are still like senior people in the White House.
So who?
Yep, that lines up to everything that I've been hearing. As of course, Barack Obama still has probably a very prominent role in this current administration, and probably is calling more of the shots than Joe Biden is. Joe Biden, who clearly isn't, cognitively well. Why wouldn't Barack Obama allow his sphere of influence, especially with a very similar cabinet that he had under his administration, in order to kind of push and enforce his larger will on the American people? Atlas, it's fine. James O'Keefe is okay. Atlas, get over here. Come on, let's go. Sorry about that. What did you make of this new video by James O'Keefe, and what is your response to it? And does it add up to what you're hearing is happening inside Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely. And it's funny because the intuitions of our voters was spot on way ahead of time. People would always say a year and a half, 2-3 years ago, Obama's still running the White House, and this just hits it right on the nose. The names that they drop, like Ron Klein and Gene Spurlock, I believe the name, they're all from the same group. I mean, the Obama-Biden administration, they served together. Obviously, they have the same sort of brain trust, same donors, same relationships. So, no, it's just a revolving door. I mean, Obama's people never really left. They're all working together, doing the same thing, running this together. And it doesn't surprise me. But I will say, I think Obama has an outsized influence in the sense that because Biden is cognitively declined, I think Obama is probably exercising more power than he otherwise would have if his mental health was a little bit better off. But no, there's no difference.
There's a reason Barack Obama never left Washington, D.C. There's a reason he's expanding his compound there and his living situation. As of course, that guy's calling a lot of the shots, and I don't think people realize the huge sphere of influence that he actually has, not just on policy but also culture as well. We're not just talking about Netflix shows here and movies that people allege also has some predictive programming in it, but there's a lot of also inner talk and rumbling of this kind of larger war between the Clintons and the Obamas. I don't know if you heard anything about that, but it definitely does seem like the Clinton faction inside of Washington, D.C. really isn't happy with the Obama faction that they kind of view as the faction that kind of took over a lot of their influence.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm confused, honestly, because the media has been telling me for the longest time that Trump was wrong about this, but from the description that you're giving me, Anthony, it sounds as if like there's a state that, regardless of who you vote for, remains kind of the state, and it's not really shallow. You might even call it like deep. It's like a deep state, but like the news keeps telling me that doesn't exist. So I'm confused.
Well, it's really not that deep. It's pretty shallow. They show themselves. There's no everyone thinks there's so many secrets. No, they're pretty out there in the open. I mean, hey, we're going to indict Trump 4 times. Here's who we are. Here's what we're doing, and we don't have to justify anything. But I think the faction argument is something that's totally dead on, which is that there's all these factions within the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, and they're dueling factions. And at the end of the day, it's just about power.
Right.
They just want more power, influence, and they want to grow their little sort of turf war and just kind of
little fiefdom.
Hold on to the Republican Party for a long time.
Right.
And you see that in the Republican Party, too. There are old political hands that still has an outsized influence. Here in Florida, Jeb Bush still controls so much of what happens that people don't know about. At the national level, Haley Barbour, who was RNC chair way back in the day, Mississippi governor, his little sort of mafia fiefdom exercises enormous power in the Republican Party. And they're sort of a dated entourage from way back, but they have their little turf. They're not going to give it up. And the Democrats have the exact same thing.
Yeah, you said mafia, and I think that's a perfect representation of what's really happening in kind of Washington, D.C., because they all have their game, they all have their seat at the table, and they're all vying for their own kind of power positions, but they won't ruin the game, but they'll compete against each other. And I think one faction that definitely wants a seat at the table is being heavily prosecuted is, of course, Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, that, as we're finding out today, 7 jurors were actually selected in the upcoming criminal case against the former president of the United States, who is facing felony charges for misclassifying his expenses on reports. Yes, that usually is a misdemeanor. Somehow it's now a felony, and now there's a long, drawn-out political process that the president of the United States is told he needs to sit in throughout the entirety of. He can't even go to the Supreme Court. He can't even go to his son's graduation, as the jury poll now is being selected, which, according to Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, this is going to be very fair after all, and there's nothing to worry about, especially when it comes to the impartiality of the very woke leftist majority of Democrats that live in New York City, that these jurors are going to be pulled from.
In your city will be fair to former President Trump.
The city is a fair city, and that's why they're on the jury duty. Both sides decide, and they interview and make their determination.
Yeah, fair, right? No, I don't think it will be at all. I think it's fair to say here, and it's fair to speculate, that a lot of people, especially within the last few years, cannot be politically not involved, cannot be partisan in one way or another. And clearly, a lot of people now see politics as war, and clearly the legal system now has turned into another form of lawfare against political opponents. And I think that's exactly what's happening against the former president of the United States. Do you agree or disagree?
Absolutely. And what he said is completely patently absurd. I think the most important fact, or best fact, for contradicting what he said was that on the first day of the trial, they brought in 93 jurors. And the first 50, they said, the judge said, who's a radical leftist himself, as we know, he said, raise your hand if you find it impossible to be unbiased and fair in this jury. Impossible. And over half, 50 of the 93, raised their hand and said, impossible. And they walked out. I mean, they were dismissed for cause. So the fact that you have over half of the first jury pool applicants saying it's impossible for me to get to where I need to be shows it's fundamentally unfair. That's, by the way, that would never happen anywhere else. You know, if one of Obama's goons was arrested in Florida and it was a Republican county and there was jurors, they would say, I can be fair in this. And they could dispel their political attitudes. But that's how vitriolic that city is. And I think based on voting patterns, it's the second most liberal city in the country. So, no, I mean, it's just the least fair imaginable venue that he could ever be in.
Yeah, and then the judge also made sure that Orthodox Jewish people, that overwhelmingly are some of the few right-wing individuals in New York City, can't also participate in the jury poll by making Friday one of the days that they're going to have legal proceedings on, which is, of course, against a lot of the Hasidic Jews' religious laws. And it's pretty clear here. There's still a couple jurors that are going to be selected here, and also 2 reservists. And it's going to be kind of important to see what is going to be happening here, as of course a lot of people have their own kind of speculations to what is going to be following this larger kind of court proceeding. As you kind of tweeted that juror number 4 could be the one that could, quote, save the republic. And, it does just take one person to get involved. It does just take one person to say, hey, no, this is crazy. I don't want to punish the man. I don't think he's guilty. It takes one person to also understand jury nullification to repeal a lot of bad laws that are being misused. Will that be juror number 4? What's your argument for this individual?
Well, looking at all the really hostile partisan statements that were made by potential jurors, his remarks stood out because they just seemed non-political. He seems like a non-political guy. He called the president mysterious and interesting or something like that. So I just don't think that sort of vocabulary bespeaks, a person with an innately political worldview, which all the other jurors have. 2 of the jurors they selected, by the way, are prominent white shoe, high-level attorneys at really old-school law firms. So like really elite, white liberals that they jog, they hike, they do a lot. Like the way you would think of like a typical waspy kind of liberal. I don't see them being good jurors. I think that this Puerto Rican guy who is coming into this with a much less political viewpoint might be the one to hang the jury. And you're exactly right. He's not going to get acquitted. There's no way you're going to get all these people to vote to acquit. That's impossible, in my opinion, unless they're confused. I think what your best bet is that somebody is going to hang this jury, which means they're going to vote no, everybody else votes yes, and they dismiss the case. New York will probably refile the case, but by that point, it'll have to start from scratch, and it'll be far after the election. He'll be president.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy what's going on here. A lot of this is just out of the norm. This doesn't seem like something that is fair here from my perspective. And again, when it comes to Donald Trump, when he does bad stuff, we criticize him. When he does good stuff, we say he does good. We try to be as impartial as we can here, but there's no way to kind of look at this current situation and not say that they're kind of rigging the judicial legal system against him. There's no other way, since Barack Obama, George W. Bush, they committed a lot of really horrible actions. They violated the law in many different ways, and they have presidential immunity. This is what Donald Trump is kind of arguing here, but it definitely looks that like when you have a jury, not of your peers, but a lot of leftists, when you have a judge who also could be politically motivated and a district attorney that's supported by, very interesting kind of billionaires out there, that you have a situation that definitely isn't going to amount to any kind of real justice here. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's the Democrats kind of playing with fire here. I don't think they really understand the larger consequences here, because on the flip side, Donald Trump could be seeing this as a way to stay in the media, to stay in the conversation, to be someone who is being politically prosecuted, and therefore just get more support for him and his larger kind of presidential hopefuls for this upcoming election. So do you think that this is overall a positive for the president, or do you think this could be a negative for the president because it is taking him away from campaigning, but it is bringing him to a lot of other Americans who are constantly having to hear about him and are going to be hearing about him more because of these proceedings?
I think no pun intended, I think the verdict is still out on that, because it depends on the dynamics of the trial and the kind of case that the state of New York brings against him, or the city of New York brings against him, technically the state. And the way they present the trial, might positively or adversely affect voter opinion. I think if I had to guess right now, he benefits from it, because they're going to overplay their hand. They're going to be erratic. They're going to say insane things. These are radical left. It's a left-wing state, left-wing city, left-wing prosecutors. They're going to say something political and flamboyant in the courtroom, and that's going to inflame independents who look at this as completely absurd. And by the way, even the New York Times early on in these indictments said that this was the wrong direction for the country, that this was actually going to end up hurting the country. And obviously, I think that's objectively true. I think if he goes to jail, you're going to see riots in this country that make January 6th look like a complete joke. Okay, you're going to see serious violence and real harm and death and blood and gun kill. I mean, it's going to be really ugly. I wouldn't say a civil war, but you're going to see really nasty civil disorders and destruction and death in this country if he goes to jail. Does anybody think that's a good idea over this stupid Stormy Daniels thing? So even, like I said, even the New York Times and some of the traditional gatekeeper left, consensus opinion left, were against this thing when it started. But they're entrenched by their own ideology. They cannot slow down. They cannot stop. They hate this man so much that they're willing to destroy the country. It's scary.
Well, hopefully cooler heads prevail, and hopefully we never get to that position or situation. But it definitely does look like the Democrats and the establishment are doing everything they can in order to try to stop him. How far will they go? As it looks like every time they attack him, they make him more kind of prominent. They make him more popular. They make him someone that more and more people are wanting to reason and listen to, because they're like, hey, this is kind of really weird that they're doing all these things. They're putting out all these stops to stop him, and he's only getting bigger. He's only getting more popular, and he's only becoming more unstoppable from here. So this is a dangerous situation, and why many people believe that this year is going to be an absolutely crazy year, as most election years usually are. There's usually civil unrest. There's usually a lot of censorship. There's usually a lot of people vying for power and influence in very dramatic ways. And I just really hope things calm down. I think the majority of Americans want them to calm down. Will they, though? I don't think so. I'm going to ask the audience on YouTube right now, do you think things will simmer down this year? You could write yes or no in the YouTube poll right now, and we're going to be telling everyone what the audience thinks.
98% no. Look, what concerns me about this most, and setting Trump aside, I feel like both Trump and his supporters, like the hard MAGA base, they don't seem to be extrapolating what a grievous threat this is to all of us, even if you don't consider the fate of Donald Trump. Like, we're talking about a truly weaponized judiciary, and it doesn't seem like there's any brakes to be put on that. And I'm just, before the show we were talking, and you were saying that you're optimistic, and this is actually one of the major reasons I'm pessimistic. So I'm curious how you think this is reformable, because to me it doesn't seem like it is.
I do believe that we're at like a sort of crossroads. Well, I'll just be very literal about it. If this jury gets hung, right, and the New York trial ends, he's not looking at a trial for quite a while, right? The documents case in Florida is at least a year out. The Georgia case is probably 18 months out. Right. The D.C. case, based on the Supreme Court hearing presidential immunity next month, and the 1512 charge quite literally this week, I think it was yesterday, it was oral argument, that trial is not going to be till late fall. So if this New York thing goes down, yeah, I think you're going to see like some oxygen come into the room and things do calm down, and you have somewhat of a normal general election season, Trump versus Biden. Wow. I do believe if he's in a jail cell before the RNC, before the convention in Milwaukee, which is a strong possibility. I'm not saying this is a good thing.
Well,
but
they're threatening him with 30 days in jail for contempt of court.
There you go.
For violating the gag order, speaking out against this case that clearly is politically biased.
If that happens, I mean, this is literally the only similarity. You have to go to world history. This is like Caesar, like Rubicon, like Senate killing Caesar type level world-shaping history. If you put the front runner of the presidency, the front runner, polling higher than Biden right now, in a jail cell in New York City,
right,
this country's going to be in absolute turmoil for a very long time. Even if he gets out, it's going to be permanently reshaped in a very ugly fashion. And I can't believe these people would do that, but that's where they are.
Before we go to Clint, Steph, we have some super chats. Do you want to read the two that we have on screen here?
Yeah, and I also want to say that Trump was born in 1946, which is the year of the dog. And right now we're in the year of the dragon, which is the enemy year of the dog. So this is like prime time, get Trump. Like, he's supposed to be really careful right now. So according to numerology and GG33, I'm just throwing that out there too, which is kind of sad. So I just had to say it. Anyways.
GG33, we were hanging out with him a couple days ago. Biden actually lost on his enemy year as well, if you're going to be looking into all that stuff as well. He won the presidency. We'll get into all that stuff a little bit later because it's a little bit in the weeds there. But Steph, just read off the super chats.
They say that if you do good in your enemy year, that all the good that you got is going to come back and haunt you. So like if you make money, like a lot of money during your enemy year, well, that money is like going to get you somehow. So I don't know. But anyways, we do have some super chats here. We have one from a name that I don't know.
Yeah, read it. Yeah, you could read it.
Okay. It's from Clint's vibrating G-string. It says, "Hello, guys."
I can't believe it's able to speak. It's weird.
Thank you, Clint's vibrating G-string.
Jesus.
Okay, we have another one here.
Where?
We're here to the right hand side.
Oh, we have Sneak King that says, "What are the facts on the 7th floor group?"
I have no idea. I haven't heard
What's
of the
that mean?
7th floor group as well. Have you heard about it?
Someone in a
There's so
building.
many theories of what's going on in the world. I have no idea what's going on.
I have no idea as well. We have the
Every day I get asked.
I've heard every conspiracy theory. I've never heard of the 7th floor group.
It might be involving some kind of piece of fiction that we might not be getting the context to. The poll overwhelmingly, 95% of people said on YouTube that things will not simmer down this year. 5% are hopeful. But in response to the white pill, in response to maybe having a little bit of hope and optimism, there is a video showing Donald Trump going up to Harlem, and the reaction from the people there was pretty interesting and not what a lot of people would expect as he was visiting a bodega. And we have this video from the event. It's not a lot of people. It's a few people. But Donald Trump came out with kind of declarative statements saying that he thinks he could win New York this election cycle. I don't think he can. I think the vast majority of people really don't like him, especially in New York City. But is that something that could be probable here, as his poll numbers are pretty high? And do you think he could take New York?
So many of his supporters fled over the past 4 years, so I think it would be like had none of the people migrated out of there, I think there's a good chance he could have won. But I think you've seen hundreds of thousands of people that have fled New York, so I doubt it.
Yeah, I love Trump, but I would say probably not for really one major reason, which is when you have a successful candidate, obviously you're doing there's two strategies. One is you're going to pump your base, but at the same time, you don't want to pump the opponent's base. You want to try to calm them down. Trump is better than anybody we've ever had in 50 years of pumping our base. DeSantis' strength last year in the gubernatorial, people don't understand this. They think that he had like this magnetic ability to turn out voters. He actually did not. DeSantis' great strength was he just didn't
His
offend.
opposition, yeah.
He did not offend the left that well.
Right.
And so you had quite literally an 18, 19, 20% dip in turnout with left-leaning NPAs and Democrats. So like in Osceola County next to Orlando, 20% less of the Democrats just stayed home. So that was the strength. So with Lee, what's his name, the congressman that was in Long Island?
Zeldin. He was running for governor.
He did a great job keeping the Democrat vote down while pumping the base a little bit, but he only got within 7 points. So with Trump, base is going to go up, but let's be honest.
Opposition,
The Democrat is going to go through the roof in that election, especially in a general, not a midterm like he had. And so therefore, I don't think New York's in play. I think Jersey's closer, but not in play either.
Do you think that the Democrats, like broadly speaking, genuinely because I think they're sincere, as crazy as they are. I think they're sincere in believing that Trump is a criminal. I can't say all the words that they would describe him as, but I'll leave it at that. Do you think that they actually, because like to me all these charges that they're bringing against him are so trumped up, obviously, and so obviously a political persecution. Do you think most of them genuinely believe that he's this criminal, dangerous gangster?
No, I think their base does. I think their base does.
Okay,
yeah, not the majority of the Democrats. I mean, they might claim so.
So the politicians you think are,
when I say the base, I mean the hardcore ideologues, the donor class, the political activists, the people who really make up the base Democrat Party truly believe that. They're that psychotic, but. The average Democrat, sort of like moderate, center-left Democrat, they're probably like, some of this is trumped up. They might not like Trump, but they don't. That's kind of they don't believe it. Yeah,
I think seeing what happened in 22 is going to be very similar to what is going to be happening this upcoming election cycle as well. But not so long ago, New York had a Republican governor, George Pataki, an individual who was also a part of the Bilderberg group that we had many interesting conversations with him about. That specific, larger, secretive, larger organization that he really didn't like to talk about. But a lot of people are arguing that if people never fled to New York City, I fled New York City. If people never fled New York and went to freedom states like Texas and New York and to Louisiana, that New York could have actually elected Zeldin. That was the big difference between the 7 points here. Now, there's different arguments for staying and leaving. I don't know if you have a particular strong opinion on this. Personally, I left. I'm happier than ever that I'm not in New York City. City. I love it here in Florida. Florida now that is overwhelmingly Republican and no longer a purple state. Do you see this argument being valid that you should leave, or do you think it's more valid that people should stay where they are?
Yeah, if I could control it, right? If there was some omnipresent centralized force that could rearrange people, yeah, I would obviously tell them to get out of Florida because, you know, I can't. I'm the chairman of a Republican Party in Lake County, so I'm a member of the state party. I vote on state policy and what the state party does. And that group, the RPOF, the Republican Party of Florida, is full of backslappers who are like, yeah, we have 1 million more Republicans now than we did 6 years ago. And it's really the stupidest thing in the world to be proud of because we've sucked them exclusively out of blue states.
Right.
It's blue swing-ish states, Pennsylvania, you know, Jersey, you know, not Illinois, but states in that general area, Michigan for sure.
Sure.
And so, you know, it's not a good thing. I think we do, you know, long-term, the health of the country, you know, if people can be realigned and you had federalism and people could run their lives on their own, that'd be great. But that's not what's going to happen. I'd really like to see more people move back to Michigan, get Michigan and Pennsylvania back, and guarantee the presidency for the next 20 years, right? I mean, this might sound a little radical, but I've said this, you know, privately and sometimes publicly. I would incentivize it. I would actually say the state of Florida should have some sort of incentive, like you're going to get $10,000 to go to a blue state that's a swing state and vote. Like use the state budget to win the presidential election by paying people to go vote in swing states. Georgia's right around our corner. Why don't we take 50,000 Floridians, send them to Georgia? They all vote Republican. Take that state out of the purple column.
That sounds strange. Like, are we supposed to be like
We're in
moving
war, aren't we?
our people around? Like,
I'm a wartime candidate. Not like Johnson.
No, this is an interesting argument. But personally, you couldn't pay me enough money to move out of here. I love this place so much.
Me too.
I would not want to be in Pennsylvania. I would not want to be in Hotlanta. I would not want to be anywhere near any of that craziness and nonsense. Sure, you get hiking, but you also get like a homicide rate and like an STD rate that are like, you get a lot of bad stuff.
It's bad.
In Hotlanta.
This is the point I was going to make, though. Is like, say you incentivize that, you offer 10,000. You're just going to see the Democrats that live in Florida go, okay, and then they're going to go vote Democrat in those states. So I don't think the Republicans are going to leave.
It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek idea,
Okay.
but I throw it out there in the sense of we need to be aggressively erasing silly norms that we've had in the Republican Party, which is we can't use the state budget or coffers for any political end. And the truth is the Democrats have done that for a very long time. They use their state budgets for red states. Really, if you think about it, are one of the bastions to fight back against liberalism within the country, using state governments, right? Yeah. The AG's office, Attorney General.
The fight against ESG has been incredibly valuable.
Exactly. So we need to use the budget in creative ways to win partisan ends. I do believe that. Of course, the Democrats believe that. But you have this historic minimalism within the Republican Party that's like, oh no, we can't use power, we can't use government in any creative way. I mean, I use a very kind of outlandish literal example, but there are other ways that you can incentivize.
Sure.
Fighting.
As a hardcore libertarian, like I'm very sympathetic to those that say like, no, let's not use the state for X, Y, Z. But it's like simultaneously the state is being used against us to destroy the Bill of Rights, and it's like, well, if we lose that, then we've basically lost liberty because you won't have a judicial system that will uphold any of the liberties that libertarians value. And it's like, all right, so what do you do here? Like, where do you take this? And despite your assertion that federalism is not the direction that this thing will go, I think unless your plans do work and you're able to incentivize people to go back to these blue states and start to freedom them, I think that federalism and ultimately kind of a peaceful separation is likely where we're headed. Well, not the peaceful part is very in doubt, but the separation part is less in doubt. You seem more optimistic that we can actually bring this thing back together. My view is that as long as the left is in charge of public education, they continue to churn out millions and millions of their foot soldiers year after year. I don't see how you prevail.
Yeah, well, so education obviously is, as a candidate, I'm far more interested in generally domestic policy because I want to reform the country from within. And yeah, education is number one. If we need to use the education system to create conservative, Republicans, right? In the old school sense of Republicans, people who believe in civic governance, all that. We're not doing that right now. The public school system is a disaster, and it creates automatically, materialistic atheistic, non-civic minded,
and I think
NPCs, I guess you could say, whatever.
Yeah. And I think it's intentionally so.
Intentionally, and they love it, and it benefits them, and so we need to drastically change it.
Yeah,
drastically change it.
And then some of these states are just absolute crap holes. I could not see myself living in New York City anymore, or California. California, that by the way, they just unveiled an office for genealogy in California because they want to see who was descendant of slaves, so they could pay back reparations to them. Yes, this is an actual story. This is actually what they're working on in the failed state of California, where they are moving forward with plans in order to pay back people reparations. I think they're also going to find out very quickly that not a lot of African Americans are actually linked to the slave trade, and they're going to be finding out that the state of California really wasn't involved in that endeavor as well. So why are the people of California going to be paying for all of this? How are they going to be paying for all of this? Are they going to be tracking the genealogy of the people who enslaved people and then making them pay? Well, if you're going to be doing that way, you might as well do that. But no, they're going to be taxing gold, tobacco, and other, quote, slave goods in order to pay for reparations in California. That also just implemented a mansion tax that is making property less available for the people out there, housing more expensive. And as we just saw from the Telegram CEO that was talking to Tucker Carlson, he was just about to headquarter his company in San Francisco until he was viciously attacked just by simply walking down the street. So personally, myself, no, thank you. Won't ever be moving to California, as those states are failed states, and I think they're only going to fail even more with more of these ridiculous policies that just hurt the average consumer, the average person living there. Clint, you fled there. These are your people.
Yeah.
Answer for them now.
Well, then you got to answer for the New York people. Good luck.
New York people have Stockholm syndrome. We think we're living in a great place. It's a crap hole. Once you leave, you start realizing that the streets aren't supposed to be smelling like pee. Right. You start to realize that there's not supposed to be trash everywhere. You realize that you don't have to watch your back all the time, and you could actually relax and lay back and enjoy a beautiful beach here in Miami, Florida. And then when you come back, you do realize, after waking out of that kind of larger hypnosis of New York City, that holy cow, I was indoctrinated. I believed that the crap all around me was good, and it wasn't. Right. Once you have a New Yorker leave on vacation, you will see the happiest person ever. Once they come back, they're like, oh man, this is horrible. Yeah. But the longer they leave, the more they realize they're under this kind of hypnotic trend. So that's my explanation of New York. Because when I lived there, I was like, this is the best city in the world. I love this trash and pee everywhere and criminality. This is awesome. This is the boom bust life. This is where everything's happening. And then I kind of walked out of it, and then I came back. I was like, this sucks.
Well, the problem is that California is actually nice. New York City sucks for real. But California, like San Diego, is still to this day, in my opinion, one of the greatest cities in the world.
Your beach waters are filled with poop from Mexico.
Okay, but the beach is still awesome. And if you play beach volleyball, it's fantastic.
No, it's not. I went to Venice Beach. My goodness.
Well, you went to Venice. Venice sucks. There's great beaches in California.
I looked at San Diego from Tijuana, and I'm like, that's a lot of poop going into that water. Literally, there's major poop contamination.
Look, you can spin this however you like. I promise you, San Diego is a pretty awesome place. I go back there, and I still feel like it's an awesome place. The issue is that the government is horrific, and because the weather is so nice and the people are generally nice, they continue to turn a blind eye to the obvious tyranny that they live under, with the tax rates being what they are and the homelessness increasing year after year. And the real issue is that the UC system just churns out millions and millions of hard Democrat voters year after year, and there's nothing you can do to stop that process until you stop sending your kids to these indoctrination mills. And God bless if you do.
What's UC system?
University of California. It's the largest public college. I think it's the largest public college network in the country, or whatever they call it. So it's a real problem, man. And as long as the left is in charge of indoctrinating your kids, I feel like you are. I mean, sledding uphill doesn't even really begin to cover it. Like, you are just totally doomed. Yep. So that's why the fight is necessary.
The society is, The culture is now changing. It's getting worse.
Yeah. I can speak for Miami people because this is my hometown, and it's awesome in Miami.
Don't say that one. Don't come here. We're full.
That is true. I'm starting to. We should lie about Florida and say it's a terrible place to keep them away.
I want more people here. I want more
No,
Slavic people
the
here.
traffic
I
is
want more.
brutal.
I want more Cuban people
Slavs
here.
can come.
Bring them all over. Hey guys, there's fountains filled with vodka here. Okay, it's bread and honey everywhere you look. It's beautiful. Come on down. Seriously.
The women are vapid. Stay home if you're from a blue state. Just stay.
The women are interesting. I'll just leave it at that. We'll be getting into those women and the larger discussions happening right now with Ben Shapiro that allegedly really isn't happy that some people are going to be having babies. What's going on there? Well, we're going to have to discuss it on Rumble, where the conversation will continue as we are going to be leaving the very censorious technocratic platforms that are known as Facebook and YouTube right now and going over to more kind of free speech platforms where we are able to kind of express ourselves fully. We are also going to be taking callers in about 30 minutes from now from members of LukeUnfiltered.com. So if you are a member, make sure to, of course, log in, go to that Telegram channel, let me know you want to call in, and we will be going to you in about 30 minutes. Anthony, as we make this switch over here, where can people find out more information about you and support your work and your campaign?
On Twitter, it's at Anthony Sabatini, and then that's my handle for all social media from Facebook, Get, or whatever it is. And then my political website is sabatiniforcongress.com.
Awesome. Clint, where can people find you?
At Liberty Lock Pod on X. If you want to support my work, I would appreciate it if you subscribe over there. I will, in fact, follow you back. And that's the only way you can get my follow, because I only follow people that support me at this point in my life. I'm kidding. Liberty Lockdown's the show. If you want me to absolutely eviscerate Ben Shapiro, you can watch the next hour on Rumble, or you can watch my episode of Liberty Lockdown last night where I absolutely shred the dude. Last but not least, I will be on Tower Gang at 9:15 tonight, and you absolutely should not tune in. It is the most racist and repugnant show on the internet. And we got stuff on the buttons.
I disavow Clint.
Dude, do it. Disavow me immediately.
Steph, do you disavow Clint?
Oh, she likes me.
I like Clint.
All right, Steph, where can people follow you?
You can follow me on X at StephWRC or on Instagram at StephWeAreChange.
Let's go.
All right, the conversation definitely is going to get a lot more free, a lot more interesting. Also, just a reminder, we are doing a nature hike this Saturday for members of LukeUnfiltered.com here in Miami, 2 p.m. Eastern. The address will be released in a few hours from now, just